Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is John with Murder by the Book coming to you from my living room. I'm super excited for this event tonight. Helen emailed me a couple weeks ago, a month ago, and said, hey, I really want to do this. Can we make this work? So I'm so glad we were able to do it. So tonight we are chatting with Nicki Dolson. She is a writer primarily of short fiction, what has been published in places like Shotgun Honey, Tough, Thuglit, and the Bartleby Snopes. She's also written a novel-ish thing, All Things Violent, and put together a short story collection, Love and Other Criminal Behavior, which is out now. Helen Ellis is the author of American Housewife, Eating the Cheshire Cat, and Southern Lady Code. Raised in Alabama, she lives with her husband in New York City. How are y'all doing this evening?
Right.
Good. Happy.
Yeah, so if you guys are tuning in, we're live on Facebook. If you have questions for Helen or Nicki, you can drop them in the comments below. I am going to turn off my video and let them chat for a little bit, and I will pop back on later. Also, Helen is going to be giving away a copy of Nicki's book to the person who asks the best question. So definitely get your questions ready and get those dropped into the Facebook comments. And I'm gonna turn it over to you guys, and I will see you in just a little bit.
All right. So I'll jump in and say that first to say why Murder by the Books means so much to me. And for the longest time, I wasn't writing, but I was always reading. And my sister and my mother and I would go to these mystery conventions, BoucherCon and Malice Domestic. And during all that time, I sort of became a fangirl of John, or Johnny Cakes as he's known online, because he throws all the events and he tweets about and Instagrams and talks about all the mystery books, and I just became like a crazy rabid fan. And at one BoucherCon, I think it was in Long Beach, I'd had one or two glasses of wine, saw him across a ballroom and rushed him as if he was, well, for me, John Lithgow, someone I thought just irresistible. And when I eventually did start writing again, John was the first person to ask me to come to a store event. And it just meant the world to me, and he's continued to be so supportive of my work. So when I found Nicki's book in my hands and just fell in love with the voice, you know, I'm going to have you read the first page or the first 5 paragraphs of the first story. You know, you as a reader, you pick up a book and you know, for me, I know in the first page if I'm gonna keep reading. But to pick up someone that I don't know and to immediately feel that I'm in good hands, that I'm in new territory, that I'm with a smart, funny, fierce writer is thrilling. It's thrilling to me. And I want everybody to know about it. And so I thought the best mix would be Nicki at Murder by the Books, because the book is Love and Other Criminal Behavior. And there are many crimes that happen in these stories, and all the stories are delicious and unexpected and heartbreaking and just a joy, especially right now in this quarantine time where you might have hard trouble focusing on a longer work. These are just perfect stories. So I want Nicki to please read the first 5 paragraphs of the first story, Georgie Ann, which I think is a perfect story, and you will really get a taste of what I got a taste of, you know, a month or so ago. So Nicki, take it away.
Helen. Oh my gosh. Y'all don't know I'm a huge fan, but I'm gonna read this now. So, Georgie Ann. Georgie Ann is dead. Her husband and all of ours crowd around her coffin. They stand with their backs to us and their arms thrown over each other's shoulders. We, the dutiful spouses, black suited and Prada heeled, sit waiting for our cue to cry. The casket is open. We've all done our viewing, and we agree she looks great for a dead woman of her age. She is 10 years our senior. Was. One of us says what we're all thinking. How much hairspray do you think they used? Her hair never held curls like that. Maybe it's a wig, another says. We contemplate this. Georgie's bangs are perfect. Her face looks flawless, and her head is tilted on the pillow to smooth out her neck wrinkles. Her crow's feet are hardly noticeable. We were not Georgianne's friends. Not really. Though our husbands, all former college football players, now golfers with love handles and bald spots like medieval monks, are the best of friends, Greek letter brothers till the end, we spouses did not like each other, but none of us liked Georgianne, and in that we found friendship.
I love it. I feel like you tell us everything we need to know in that first page. And, you know, it's a murder mystery, and we know she dies. There she is in the coffin with that perfect neck, which I'm going to have to make a note of for when I die. Tilt my neck back. And the thrill is sort of finding out, you know, how she died. And I think it's this perfect short story because you instantly know who the characters are, and you instantly know why the murder was allowed to happen. And there's still a question at the end of was it murder, was it an accident? My first question for you is, when you write a crime story, do you think of the characters first or of the crime first?
Always the characters. It's, I mean, I can't think of one thing I've ever written that there's a dead body. Well, how do we get the dead body? You know, it's always somebody lamenting the dead body or contemplating how to have it, or just in that moment, like they're next to me or something kind of like that. Like they're just there, and then I need to kind of follow them. And sometimes they show up and then the rest of it kind of rolls out at me, and I'm like, oh, okay, we can do this. But that's how they show up.
Who in this story came to you first? You know, sort of what was the seed of this particular story?
So I was terribly blocked.
Really?
And yes, terribly blocked. And I took a class with an old teacher of mine, just sat in one of his writing workshops, and he's like, okay, nobody's got a story today, so I'm just going to give you this thing. There's somebody at a funeral for somebody they don't like. And I went, ha! And he was like, 25 minutes later, I had like the bones of it there. And he was like, are you done? And I'm like, I'm so done. Like, this is it. This is the best thing ever. But it never happens that way. Huh?
Teacher.
His name, he's a writer, H. Lee Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
And he taught, he retired maybe 3 years ago now, but he taught at the local community college here in Las Vegas.
Great tip. I mean, sometimes that's just the way it comes. You know, someone gives you a scenario, because this is not the first time that scenario has happened. You're at a funeral of someone you don't like, but the places you took it, and I saw the story not only about a murder, but about a friendship. What was so compelling to me was the friendship between Aisha, am I saying that right? Aisha, who's the narrator, and Oscar, who is the husband of another football player, and how her adulterous affair not only threatens her marriage, but it threatens the friendship with Oscar more than anything. And how do you think secrets affect a story and a friendship?
Well, I mean, secrets beget lies. So, I mean, you have to. I mean, if somebody's lying, then either you have to keep lying, or you have to confess. And there's consequences to both. It's, for this character, she missed out on another lunch with someone she cares about, with Oscar. And, he's like, I'm like, I can't even talk to you anymore. And he warned her, and that, I would say that she cares less about her marriage than she cares about her relationship with Oscar.
Yes.
Oscar is, marriage be damned, she needs to, she feels bad. She may not have a fix, but she feels bad about, her relationship with Oscar.
Yes.
And her husband,
It's true. I felt more threatened that she would lose her relationship with Oscar than the husband. So we start off with Georgie Ann in the coffin, and we know she doesn't. When did you figure out? We're going to spoil everything.
Yeah, might as well.
Yes, it's only one story out of many stories. When did you figure out the secret of Aisha is having an affair with perfect Georgie Ann's husband? When did that come to you?
Honestly, I was just writing, and that's where I'm like, Oscar's warning her about the affair, because that is so. The thing that always draws my attention is in any media, is that like the idea of like that 1950s suburban, it's
right.
June Cleaver, it's that mask of everything's fine here. And I'm always dipping back into that well. And it's the things that undo us are always things that are some selfish things. It's love. It's the you want to be desired.
Yes.
You want something that you have everything, but it's still not enough. And that is the thing that, okay, so what is that thing for them? Do they, they have money. It's obvious they have money. They may have the smaller house on the block, but they're still on the block.
They have jacuzzi tub kind of money.
Yes.
The tennis court.
Yes, they might have, an extra bathroom and the walk-in shower and but they live across the street. So they have their own money.
Yeah, that was such a good detail.
And they have, and if they have money, they have, in my world, they are all working. They all have gainful employment of some sort. But so all that's left is those interpersonal relationships. And so we have your friends and you have your family. So, both of these things in this story are the things that are on the edge.
There are so many moments in several of the stories you talk about that facade of the perfect home life. And I play with that all the time myself. And there's great moments, like I think it's in The Mistress, which is a fantastic story about a mistress going to kill her lover, but somebody beats her to it. But there's a moment of her looking into his house, into a doll house, as you describe it, and you describe where is the wife, where is the doll. The perfectly folded towels are here, and you just this perfect world, but there's something sinister, there's something not right. When I think of Instagram now, when things look too perfect on someone's Instagram, that divorce notice is coming.
Yes.
It's just so what I love about the stories is you see the just constantly cracks in the facade. You're just kind of poking through all these cracks in the facade, and so much to do with women's relationships, the mistress and the wife, high school girls. One of the most horrific high school girl stories I have ever read. Lucy. It comes late in the book, and so many of the stories I think are about adult relationships, but Lucy, tell us a little bit about that story.
So God, that story's a lot of things for me.
Yeah.
It went through a lot of drafts.
Really?
It did. Like what came to me first is like two girls sitting at like the picnic style cafeteria tables.
Yes, I do.
And and one's leaning over saying, "You want me to do this for you? I'm gonna need something." And
cigarettes and $40.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to do this.
Yes.
And I'm like, what is that about? So I went and, spun out versions of that story. And it's like, I started in the middle and like grew from either end of that. Cause that scene, I think maybe where it's at now is a little further back than it started.
Mhm.
But like, yeah, I mean, so I mean, Lucy it's wanting to fit in, but it's also, she's at that age where she's trying to figure out who she is.
Yes.
And she's biracial, and that adds to it. And she's new at the school. I mean, she's a freshman. So all of those things. And I have had a teenage daughter.
Woo!
Yes.
Alright.
I have several teenagers, but my daughter was my firstborn, and she is biracial, and she is really, when I thought about my character, it was a lot of my daughter in that.
Mhm.
I was somebody who moved around a lot when I was a kid, so I put that into it, and it is identity, and yeah, I guess that is it. It's identity,
It
Helen.
is. It is. And it's another moment of, you think you know what a character wants, and then you as the writer show us that it's something completely different. I think the end of that story is so heartbreaking. So much of the story is about Lucy's hair, her good hair, long, beautiful hair, and jealousy amongst other high school students. And the whole sort of plot is one older student trying to get her to cut her hair so it'll look cute, it'll look like a 1920s model. But us as adult readers realize, I think there's something, it's jealousy, there's something else going on. She wants to sort of ruin the look. And the whole time, Lucy is afraid of what her mother will say. She'll kill her, she'll come to the school, she'll pull her out of the school. And at the end, when this child has had one of her beautiful braids cut off in the most horrifying bathroom girl scene I've ever read, her mother just walks in and says, baby, just hugs her, is just a mother to her. It's so unexpected. And you see the girl who did the damage, who's so tough and so alluring to Lucy as a younger girl, just break because she does not have that family life.
Yeah.
And what I love about that story, there's a line where Lucy's mother tells her, good girls don't fight.
Yes. A thing I was told once,
Me as well.
Although my grandmother did whisper in the other ear, if they start it, you better finish it.
That's correct.
So,
That's correct.
You can only walk away so many times.
Yes.
So,
well, I was raised that there's so many fighting techniques that I was raised with, but it was, you fight dirty.
Yes.
You knee them right in the balls. you snatch that hair and you punch and run. If you have to, don't start them and it won't be done. I was definitely raised with it. But what I love about being a writer and reading you as a writer is I feel like it's our chance to fight back. Do you feel that way in your subject matter? Writing about crime, writing about ladies and grown women and young girls not behaving in the nicest ways. How do you find that as a writer?
That is very much. I was telling somebody the other day, my mom and my sisters out here in Vegas, I have more brothers and sisters in the Midwest, but the ones particularly out here, we are polite.
Yeah.
We, in a group setting, we are always going to be laughing because we always find something funny. Like that is almost always our goal. And that there's a lot of laughter.
Yes.
And I think, God, I think I've lost the thread again.
I think one thing that you said that I appreciated was, we're well-mannered. And part of that is like, in a way, manners have always kept me safe. It's that if you don't engage, then there won't be a fight. But sometimes
don't rock the boat.
Don't rock the boat.
Fit in.
Don't talk back. And life can be easier that way, but sometimes you just want to, you know,
mess it up, behave badly. And my characters are always doing the things that I would never do.
like what?
I mean,
like what?
you know, now that I'm single, okay, me and the mistress a little bit.
Yes.
That's a little bit closer to home. Not the killing. But I have entered into things without knowing all the facts, and then went, he's really cute.
Don't hold back.
Yes, I'm not proud of the, I'm sorry, Tinder is all married men, and they come to Vegas and they're like, no, I'm not married. Or, oh, no, see, when I travel, I'm allowed to.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that's all Vegas and Tinder was. And this was my, my foray into being single and trying to date after 40 has been.
Did you go through Tinder to do it? Did you go through an app to do it?
Oh, so many apps, Helen. So many apps. It's so many. I had a coach. My friend, who's actually my friend Jody. She's the Jody. I named her the character in Georgianne. That I named her for my Jody. Yeah.
Craig, for all of us who know Jody.
Yes. And she was like, "This is what you're gonna do. This is what you should expect." And then, because I would be like, no. She's like, "What are you talking about? No, him."
Yeah, there was a great description in The Mistress about how he appeared, how he appeared. Like, there were two good pictures of him just sort of looking coyly, at the camera. It's all about like how you present yourself. I read somewhere that I had a friend who was on a young friend who's on Grindr, and he was saying that people put pictures of themselves with like puppies or cats to make themselves look trustworthy or approachable.
Yeah, and what I get on my side of that, is men with like animals they've killed because they're manly, and I'm like, no, no, that's never going to be the thing for. Even if they're like, sometimes they're really badly photoshopped. You can just tell, and I'm just like, no. Even that pretend cat, no.
Well, I kind of, I want to know about Vegas, but I also want to know about, you mentioned that you had writer's block, or you had a dry spell, yes. Which I certainly have had. Tell me about, because I read this and I think, this is a professional. This is someone who knows how to tell me a story.
I'm gonna need you to go in front of me and announce me everywhere I go now.
I would love to do that. I'm hearing that you have, that you have many children and that you are over 40. And I'm thinking that I feel like I'm reading a debut. I just feel like there's so much more to come from you. So I want to know sort of your journey. How did you wind up with this book? Tell me all about the block, because every writer who's watching this wants to know about coming through that kind of a block.
So I was in a marriage for 20 plus years.
Woo.
I'm 46 for the record.
I'm 49.
Fabulous.
Cheers to that.
You look fabulous. You look fabulous.
You look fabulous.
But I had you're busy working and you're raising kids, and there's no creative outlet. I tried everything. HGTV and me were like this.
Oh,
do you remember DIY TV? Like, it was a different, that like this. I watched it all. I tried to make like nightstands out of suitcases. So much. I quilted through my 20s when I had my kids. Anything to get that creative hit. I was trying to figure out how to be happy.
Yes.
And like I had kids and I had a job that took all of my attention.
What was the job?
I am a designer at a civil engineering firm.
Woo!
Which I love. I love my job, but it's a very particular kind of thing. And it wasn't, before that, I was an artist. I drew. I used pastels and drew big flowers and things like that. All of my elementary K through 12. Yeah. Every year I was an art student. I mean, I was an English student and an art student. That was my focus. And my senior year, my parents moved and I had to find a different elective, and I went with like drafting. And that is how I got into engineering.
Something to fall back on. Something to support yourself with.
Yes.
Yes.
But in my marriage and in that job, I was not ultimately fulfilled. Yes. And so I was finally like, let me go write some more, because I did that too, but I didn't take it seriously. Mm-hmm. And I was like, 2006, we're going to do this. So I signed up for this writing workshop, and I'm thinking, oh, we're going to read some things. We're going to talk about it, maybe get some prompts. And Mr. Barnes walks in and he's like, okay, so who's going to have a story next week? And he points at me, and I'm like, I thought we were going to do like a prompt and a thing. And he's like, no, you're going to have a story next week. So suddenly I had a week to have something, and I had not written fiction in a decade.
Wow.
Easily.
Wow.
So I did. I came up with something. And it wasn't great, but he picked
but
like
there was a beginning, middle, and end.
Yes.
Yes.
But the thing he did, the thing I will never forget, is that he said, but this sentence right here, I wish I had written that.
Ooh, do you remember this?
It was something about like there was a canopy bed, and I described the sheets that came down off of it, like the 18th century, like clouds of cotton candy or something like that to that effect. But he was like, that I wish I had written that.
Yes. And
I took that into my heart.
Yes.
And through all of his tough love, through all of that, I wrote more, and I took his class again. Mm-hmm. And that December I wrote a story and I sent it out. And I read all the things, and I fully expected to get rejected, only I didn't, which for anyone listening who's wondering about that path, you're better off getting rejected first, because it makes the next rejection so much harder to live with.
Did you send it just to one place, or did you send it to a bunch of places?
No, I sent it to one place. I found, I researched, I was in all these groups, and I just lurked on the edges of them. And I'm like, okay, we're going to do this one. And I'm going to send it to this lady.
Which one was
it? Spine Tingler magazine.
Ooh.
Yes. And the very nice editor there emailed me. She goes, I love this. I want a couple changes. And that was it. And my first story was started everything.
Is that story in this collection?
It is not. It's in my first book. That story spawned a lot of the stories that I wrote. The summer of 2007, I settled down and I wrote these interlinked stories. I think it was 8 or 10 of them, mm-hmm. and combined them all, and then started sending them out, and nobody wanted it. But but I wrote all of those, and I rewrote them, and then started writing other stories and sending them out. And eventually we got hit with the housing bust went, and I got laid off, mm-hmm. and my husband got laid off, and we went, okay, so I guess we have to give up life in Vegas. And we ended up in my dad's basement in Illinois.
Oh my God.
And that was 2008. And assuming that I would never have the life I had in Vegas again, in engineering, making the money that helped support us like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what do I have to do? And I need to finish school, because I didn't. I went to a tech school. So I went to Columbia College Chicago, and went into their writing program there for the undergrad, and met just the best people, and just really got to surround myself with people who loved to write and could take me by the hand and like, this way, old lady, because we were like 20 and I was not. You know, and like, these are the things you know, your writer's toolbox. And they, you know, gave me books, and I read things, and I read everything. I read everything I could get my hands on. And again, I found those teachers who reach out to you and look you in the eye and say, you know, you're exactly where you're supposed to be right now. You are supposed to be in my class.
Yeah.
You know, and said, this is what's good, and build on that. And you should read these things. And from that, I did. I wrote 24 hours a day if I could get it in. I wrote everywhere, all the time. Most of the stories in Love and Other Criminal Behavior were fermented in that period of time when I was in the Midwest, going to Columbia.
Okay.
They got their starts there. Gosh, there's only 2 or 3 that I wrote after like the fallow period, which came at the end of that. So right around 2011, I noticed it was getting harder.
Why?
I don't know. It may have, I think there's a lot of factors in that. Stress of where we were living at. I had to stop going to school because I got laid off again and I needed to find a job. So I was living in Indiana and commuting all the way to the west suburbs of Chicago. So that was like an all day, like on the train at 4:30 a.m. to my office at like 8. And then I wouldn't get home until like 8 o'clock at night. So it was, it's everything you could do to stay awake and functioning. I wasn't writing. I was thinking about it.
And it shows. You were living and it shows. It shows. Yeah. It's showing.
Oh, already?
I could listen to you guys talk forever. Like, this is now my new favorite TV show. So I'm gonna need to do this like every week just to like get my entertainment. I'm popping in because we've got some great
good.
From the crowd. And as we get started, I wanted to say congratulations to Trisha. She's asked some really great questions. So Trisha, if you didn't see the comment, you have won a copy of Nicki's book. Just shoot us an email, and I've included the email info in the comments, and we will get that sent to you. And thank you again, Helen, for giving away a copy of the book.
Let me tell you, I put my money where my mouth is.
So our first question from Trisha is, having written so many short deaths, have you identified your ideal death?
Okay.
Good question.
So there is one that I wrote that's actually never made it anywhere.
Ooh, what is that?
There's a story in there called Laundry.
Yes.
And it had a different ending. Nobody dies in that story. Well, I take that back. Somebody does die, but it's off scene. But the main character in the original version, the husband who's fresh out of jail, he has been dreaming of having a koi pond in the backyard, and he's been digging in the koi pond. And then she finds out that he's, it looks like that he's being unfaithful to the wife who's been faithful to him all the time he was in jail. He's in the backyard pontificating about the koi pond, and she picks up the shovel, whacks him with it, and then covers him up in the hole, hams it down, and puts new turf in the backyard like he was never there, and then sits there like, this is so much nicer. I never wanted fish.
I love that. And I will tell you, one other thing that makes me think of koi is my favorite place in Las Vegas. When I go to Las Vegas, we stay at the Wynn, the tower, and you walk in, because I like the tower because you can walk in and not go through the casino, and there's this beautiful koi pond. And I find it very
Oh no.
Oh, Helen, can you? Oh,
Oh, we lost you.
We got
Froze up.
right there.
okay. So Gail asks, Nicki, have you been to a funeral since you wrote that first story? And if you have, do you look at them differently now?
I have not, but I went to, like, all of my grandparents died one year. And so I was constantly going to funerals that year. So the funerals that show up in the book, in those stories, are really me pulling from that. It is, I mean, we've had, there is, you know, they were all my father's parents. So like my grandfather and my grandmother and my other grandmother, his new wife of like 30, 40 years, something like that, but still.
Always the new wife.
Yes. And there was, I mean, as you can imagine, there was perhaps they didn't get along over those years. And so their deaths actually followed really closely. So all the family kept coming together in different states. And there was a wee bit of drama in some of the eulogies that were given. I mean, I can't like really spread that gossip for all the internet, but I'm just saying, even though they were gone, they were not like, There was drama. There was drama.
My grandfather, when he was dying, wrote his own eulogy. That's the kind of control freak that he was. And, you know, underlining every sentence for emphasis. So we've had a little drama at funerals.
Crazy.
So Tricia also asks, what is unique about death that allows for such deeper character exploration?
Death is all of our futures. I mean, if you live, you have to die. That's just how this works. And frequently, you know, the deaths that I write about are ones that come sooner than they're supposed to. You know, so it's that life cut short. It's the, you know, if there's not any self-reflection in that, then, you know, it's, you were supposed to, you know, y'all were supposed to get together that weekend. Y'all were supposed to meet up at the grocery store. You know, we had Christmas plans, you know, we were all gonna be at grandma's house. All of that just brings out the best and the worst of us, I think. That stress of the knowledge that they're just gone and that's gonna be you, and you may not see it coming.
I hope I don't see it coming.
I kind of don't want to either.
So Ryan asks, and Helen, I would love to hear your answer for this too. Is it different trying to get short stories published versus a novel?
Hell yes! Do you want me to start? Should I start?
Yes.
So the thing about getting short stories published is you can do that without an agent. You know, I think you need an agent to get a novel published and to get a short story collection published. But the thing about getting a short story published, there's a gambling aspect to it that I like. And I'm sure you've heard, Nicki, that women don't submit as much as men do. Men take no for an answer easier. I take no for an answer just fine. So when I was submitting stories from American Housewife, I had a spreadsheet going. Yes. And I would take one story and I would submit it to 20 places at a time. And as soon as one rejection came in, I would submit it to another. There's one story in that collection, The Wainscoting War. It was rejected 94 times.
I can't. Oh my God. Love that story.
Yes. So, because you're being just pulled out of the slush. And I think, you know, you, Nicki, write about very adult, complicated relationships. And most of the people who are reading the stories are 22-year-olds or 19-year-olds at university presses. So it's not really, might not be in their wheelhouse, as did I. So it's just a good gateway is to get a short story published. Because once you have a short story published, you can say, I published in Bartleby Snopes. I published, here, and it'll just open another little door for you.
Yes.
With a novel, you really have to put that in somebody else's. I think you have to put that in somebody else's hand, an agent's hands, because they're the ones that are like the gatekeepers to the editors.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious as to how this came to be. Did you submit a collection to your agent? Or did you have a 2-book deal with the first book? Like, how did it happen?
So my first book, crime, the crime community, those journals work a little bit differently than like lit mags do. I know a lot of the lit mags are backed by universities and like that. The crime mags, not so much. They're out of pocket. They're very much online, particularly now, but even the ones that were in print, I don't think any of them have ever been backed regularly by a university or anybody with big pockets of any kind of money.
Right.
But so my first book was picked up by one press, and then that press decided to fold on my book. And then so all of the authors that were on that, we all scattered to the winds, and we all talked to each other, and I'm like, okay, how about this press? And so I found a press, Fahrenheit Press, and they took my first book. And then a couple years that was out, I was then approached by somebody in the crime community who was starting his own imprint or his own publishing company. And I'm like, I don't got a book. I don't got a novel. I got nothing. I got nada. And he kept coming and he kept coming. And I was finally like, well, I do have all these stories. And my teacher, Mr. Barnes,
Mr. Barnes.
Mr. Barnes, always whispering in my ear saying, you are good, be good, get out there. Yes. Put it together. You should have a collection. So I put them together. And I was like, I have these. And he was like, yes, we're doing it. And he made me an offer. And I went, I should maybe have somebody look at this. Yeah. And so one of my stories had caught the eye of Nat Sobel. And it was in a mag called Thug Lit, which is now gone. Thug Lit was great. Everyone should buy the back copies. Yeah. But he had liked my story and wanted to know if I had a novel. And of course I didn't. But now I had this offer and I sent it to him and I'm like, do you want to be my agent for this? Because I don't know what I'm doing. And he was like, this is good. And that's how I got my agent. Yeah. And they read through it and they did all their agenty things. And that's how I got my publisher for this book. And that's how I got my agent.
And I'll tell you, that's another thing, a good thing about publishing short stories is that agents are often reading magazines looking for talent in that way. So it's just, again, getting a short story published is a great way to open more doors. Yeah. Yes,
most definitely.
So Gail asked, is it difficult to create a suspense arc in shorter stories? So how do you do that when you're plotting a short story?
Oh, it's so hard. So I mean, so there's that old adage.
You talk about that in relation to the mistress. That's a great arc.
So I mean, you have your perfect mix. You have your character and you have the thing they're after. Yeah. And if you have those two things and you can get them tugging at each other in some way, fashion, or form, then I think the natural arc of the story shows up. So we have the mistress and you're seeing her and she's hiding out in a car and you're like, why is she hiding out in the car? Because she's been scorned. She's been spurned by her lover and hell hath no fury. So, you have, now you know what started this. She has been left behind. She's watching that man. She's watching him. She knows where he lives. You get pieces of their backstory, how they came together, why she's waiting in the car. You get her looking at their house. You get you get inside her head, which is maybe not as right as it should be. Yeah.
But we're with her. Huh? We're with her.
Yes. Yeah. You know, and she's full on not there because she's like, I'm gonna look good in my mugshot. So
See, that's the line I wish I had written.
you know, and then you get there and I'm like, that's not enough. Like she shows up, she kills her lover, and then what? Because that's not really you know, maybe they fight it out or whatever, but it's not television, it's not a TV episode. And I wanted, who is the other player in this? Well, it's either another woman, maybe he has a new lover and she's there, but really, who's the other player in this? The wife, the doll that lives in that house. The wife is the one who has to become a player in the story. Mm-hmm. And so you get to that end and, oh, spoiler, the wife has killed the husband because she's done with him and his behavior. But she thinks, you know what? You and me, though, we could be friends, mistress. Let's talk. Want a drink? You know, bloody.
Can I ask one question? When you were writing that story, you start off with this stalking mistress. She's looking in the house. Why is the lover deserting me? Do you know what she's going to find when you start the story? Or do you start with, you know, just a question of why has he stopped?
Well, I knew he was like Ward Cleaver. I knew he had that perfect life.
Yes.
And she wants him and she wants that life. Mm-hmm. And she wants to insert herself into that. And of course, he's telling her these things. He's leading her on that this could happen. Mm-hmm. And then for whatever reason, he's moved on. He's bored. He's whatever. And that's the thing, like, they were never in love. He was never in love. Maybe the mistress isn't in love, but she thinks she does. Mm-hmm. She thinks she has a right to him.
Anybody that puts you on your knees doesn't love you.
Yes. You know, but these are the things we make excuses for. Mm-hmm. You know, love will do that. Yeah. Love will make you crazy, and love will make you burn.
Well, to quote New Edition, you reference in Lucy, 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 uh-huh, the song, if it isn't love, why do I feel so bad? You know, I think that's a theme throughout the collection. You know, I feel so intensely, even though it doesn't feel good, it must be love. That's, you know, it's mm-hmm, heartache. Isn't that something worth fighting for? No.
Yeah, for sure. And just the feeling something is a thing that, especially if you're unhappy, feeling something new like that is worth all the drama.
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
I feel like, again, in the collection, characters are so brokenhearted, they want to feel something else, and that something else is criminal. You know, you need a higher adrenaline kick. Yeah, it's just like I say, you have an authority. You have such an authority with your writing. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see what comes next.
Me too. No clue.
So I have just a couple more questions. Alexandra wants.
Quarantine. You have this for as long as you want.
Alexandra wants. You've got more wine. Is that what you said? Alexandra wants to know which authors inspire you.
The one who was so kind to me to talk to me today, Miss Helen Ellis. There are a lot. When I went into crime, when I was like, okay, what do I want? I read sci-fi and I read crime, and I can't write sci-fi. I tried. We burned those. We pretend they didn't happen. But I went into crime and I encountered writers like Megan Abbott.
Who I just sent your book to, FYI.
Did you really? Oh my God.
Did I, John?
She is stellar. Those books, when she, you know, sank into like the 1950s Hollywood and the glamour in her early books, Die a Little, to really for me, like I was hooked when she wrote Queen Pen.
Mhm.
That one is the one I constantly dip into. And then everything else now, she's moved forward in time, and she's constantly writing about women and how women and sisters and in conflict and in harmony together, and the things they can do and the things they don't do for and with each other.
Yeah.
Megan Abbott is high up on that list. Vicki Hendricks, Miami Purity, holy hell, always Miami Purity is just like one of those, like just top tier. I read it and I know that it's, you know, working off of another writer, but it is so wholly itself. It is, I mean, like the opening of that, I have not cracked it in at least 2 years, and I still know the opening of that. And like Sherry hits him with the radio and she kills him and she goes to jail, but she didn't mean to, but that's what's happened.
Well, that's what happens.
Yeah, but she's so, just those opening pages of Miami Purity are, it's just all forward momentum, and you are caught up with her and you are in her wake, and it is everything for me. And then coming out of my fallow period and trying to kick myself into writing more and finishing those stories I'd started in 2012. In 2015, I happened upon this book called American Housewife. And I had gotten to my very first workshop, and I'm sitting at this airport, and I hate to fly these days. And I'm like, I'm going to go around all these people who I don't know. But I had gotten in on a scholarship, and so I had to pay for my airfare, but that was it. So I was going.
Yes.
So I'm sitting there in an airport in a place I don't know, waiting for strangers because we're all in a carpool, and I'm just reading your book. And your book is so, from beginning to end, I mean, what I do all day, the fitter gutted me in an airport in California, just gutted me. And like I got to the workshop and all these people, and they're like, hi, I'm so-and-so. And they're like, hi, read this book. Have you heard of this person? I don't know anything else she's written. I have to go find out, but oh my God, here, you take this one. I'm buying another copy. And I did. And I placed it in the hand of a dear friend of mine. But your book was such a eye-opener for how the new way I can write stories, how fiction can work in a different way. I mean, and you had dead bodies. You had people, you know, pageant queens being kidnapped, and you know, this is your one breakout. And and just such deep, heartfelt, I mean, weeping over somebody trying on bras in a bathroom. I mean, just, and the email exchange and wainscoting wars, the back and forth, and the viciousness that's upping, but the politeness that's upping too. And then it's like, fuck it. It was so great. And then when I had to put together my collection, yours was the first one I thought of. Yours was the one, I'm like, I want what she did. I want this thing. I want, this cover is so perfect for it. I want that perfect cover. But also the stories are not just themes about heartbreak. They're not just, you know, stories about this family. They are everywhere, and they go to all the places. And what linked them was your voice in them, which is so irreverent and funny and caustic and just so everything I wanted. Still want. You're still want it.
You have it and more. I tell you, I think there's something to publishing in your 40s. You know, like that book came out when I was 45, and I had a 16-year drought, or what do you call it, a fallow period?
Fallow period.
I kind of steal that. And I think, you know, we were living when we weren't writing, and when you're in your 40s, I think you're less afraid to, you know, to put yourself out there. You've lived more, and you care less about criticism, and yeah, there's something to be said to finding success after 40.
Yeah.
You got it. I mean, I think I really do. I think this is the best collection I've read this year, and I read a lot of short story collections. I think it's perfection. I love it. It's so surprising. You know, like there's women boxers and drug addicts on the run. You know, it's just so, each story I'm like, who's this? Where's it going to take me? And I never know how they're going to end. And again, like I think what Mr. Burns said about, you know, wishing that, seeing lines that me as a writer wish that I had written, you know, this is highlighted all the way through of lines that I wish that I had written. And when I was writing short stories, I would study other stories, like what was it? Like there's a story called, my novel is sponsored by Tampax. And I studied Stephen King's Quitters Incorporated. Yeah. You know, like this is how he puts that together. And for Dumpster Diving with the Stars, I studied Yurt by Burnham. And, you know, I just studied and I will study Georgie Ann, and I will study Lucy. You know, you are there, and you cannot stop. You know, when I got my sort of second chance at 45 with American Housewife, you know, that's your second chance. This is your chance. You have to grab hold of it. You have to keep going because it's amazing. It's just amazing.
Thank you. It's so lovely to hear that, and just I'm so glad I took the chance. Y'all, I slid into her DMs. She threw me out.
Because I don't say yes. You know, I'm a 49-year-old lady. I can say no. So when you said, may I send you the book? I said, all right. And then again, I remember coming out to my husband. Oh, look, I'll show you. Coming out, I don't know if you can see it, but I read the first grade. I wrote, great. You know, because you get so many things to read and they ain't always good. So yeah. I was thrilled. And I reached out to John immediately. You know, I want people to know about this book. I just think it's terrific. And Megan Abbott will know about it next week when she gets the mail.
If you're watching and you're a Megan Abbott fan, she's actually moderating our event, not this Saturday, but next Saturday with Ace Atkins and Jeff Abbott. And it should be really, really fun. Also wanted to mention, because I'm also a big fan of Helen's, Nicki, one of my favorite moments in the bookstore ever was when Helen came to sign American Housewife. She roped her media escort, Becky, into reading the entire wainscoting story out loud like a play at the bookstore.
Oh my God.
Thank her. Oh. There's one moment where I had to look at her and say, F you. And it was just so joyous. It was like the best moment of the tour.
That sounds amazing.
It was great. So unfortunately, we're at time. Again, I could watch this forever. This is, again, my new favorite TV show. Thank you both so much for joining us. Before we head out, we've been chatting with Helen Ellis and Nicki Dolson. Both books are available from murderbooks.com. We are still closed to the public, but we're doing curbside pickup, phone orders and mail orders. So you can visit us at murderbooks.com, give us a call. We're happy to hook you up over the phone. Thank you, Helen, for getting in touch with us to get this set up. You know, we're always a sucker for blurbs, but we're even more suckers for like text from authors that say, I really want to do this. This book is awesome. We have to do this. So I'm so glad we were able to do this. Nicki, it was so great to meet you. Good luck with the collection, and hopefully when the world rights itself, maybe we'll get to actually host you in the store.
Yes.
So open invitation to Houston at any time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, John. Best day ever.
Bye. Y'all take care.